Podcast.
And McAllister down the left field line. Connor Tate is going to round third. He will score. And rounding third is Blaylock. He will score. And the Dogs walk it off.
If you're looking for the latest Georgia Bulldog news in football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting, then you are in the right place.
It's third down. Bryce Young's career. You need 10. Play clock at 4. From the pocket. Launching downfield. Underthrown and intercepted. Keely Ringo has an escort down the sidelines. All the way to the end zone. And Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
Hosted by Jeremiah Stoddard and Jonathan Williams.
Georgia on the mountaintop. Demons be gone, and the drought is over. National champions at long last.
Just sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for these hot takes you're about to listen to.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Classic City Sports Podcast. As always, Jeremiah Stoddard, along with Jonathan Williams. It's going to be a fun one for us tonight. We are going to open up. We actually had a question that was posed to us in the YouTube comments from one of our previous shows. And so we're going to go over that and kind of have a little bit of fun with it. It's about two guys that aren't actually draft eligible just yet or aren't going to the draft yet, but it's about their potential futures in the NFL and their potential projections. So we will get into that to start off here in just a second. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the cornerbacks because we're going position by position this offseason, and that's the next one on our list. So if you guys want us to talk about a specific position group or a certain area, make sure you drop it in the comments on here or over on Twitter. That's where we get our information of what we do next most of the time. Tonight, I think we didn't do a Twitter poll, but we just kind of went with the next one I think we had on our last Twitter poll. We went with it. Then Jonathan's got us a King of the Hill topic we're going to end the episode on, so stay tuned for that. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it, Jonathan. The question was this. The question, it's a two-part question. The first part of it is talking about Ladd and his chances for an NFL career. Like, what does that look like for Ladd McConkey? What is your projection for like a Ladd McConkey going into his NFL career? Not this season, obviously, but probably after next.
That's interesting. It's kind of hard to project. I guess if you're looking at it from a draft perspective, like how do you think he's going to do in the draft, then it's kind of difficult to kind of assess that right now because he still has a whole nother season. So much could change. As of right now, I think that Ladd McConkey could potentially be like a day 2 pick. I think he's very much in that range because Ladd has a skill set that can play anywhere in the league. He's proved that during his time at Georgia. He's got speed. He's really shifty. I call him a little jitterbug because he's just always – and when he's in open space, he just makes guys miss. He just finds a way around tackles, and he's always picking up extra yards, and that's why they use him the way that they do in their offense. But I'm interested to see now how he's used with Mike Bobo. Not that there's going to be these dramatic changes or anything like that. Not that Georgia is going to, like, reinvent the wheel – or do anything entirely different that they have in years prior. But he's coming off of a huge season offensively this past year, a career year. I think he had like 740 receiving yards, I want to say.
Yes,
he had a really solid year. So I think he'd measure out well, like speed-wise and whatnot. That's kind of what you're looking at in a slot guy like what Ladd McConkey is. And you've seen guys, like everybody wants to do the Julian Edelman thing and because for reasons. And it's like – everybody thinks that like, oh yeah, put him in with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick has thrived off of having guys like Ladd McConkey in the offense. But the reality is that Ladd McConkey would serve well on really any offense because slot guys are super valuable. It's one of the many reasons why Mecole Hardman has been as successful as he has for as long as he has now in the NFL with Kansas City Chiefs and why he stuck around for so long. You got speed and you're shifty in open space and they can just kind of use you in a lot of different ways in the offense, then you're going to have a home for a long time. And I think Ladd McConkey will have a fairly successful career in the NFL without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to have a great chance to do something as far as how well or how high he goes in the draft. Like you said, I mean, it comes down to what he does this next season. I think if he posts up another 700 to 800 yards receiving for a second year, all of a sudden he's definitely like at least a 3rd round pick, I think. You know what I mean? Like he's got to at least be a 3rd round pick, that day 2 type guy, and you'll see him be able to make a splash somewhere. But I'm with you. Yeah, everyone always talks about Julian Edelman. A guy that's more recent that you could even look at that's a similar play style is probably faster than Ladd, but you got to look at Devontae Smith. One thing that everybody was so worried about with him was his size. Like he's so small. He doesn't weigh much. He's a string bean. But I said that too. I was worried about how he will hold up in the NFL. And then I watched this year, and then I watched this Super Bowl, and I watched him absolutely get depleted and like almost flipped over, just pops back up like it was nothing. Like the dude's he can take a hit, and you got to be able to and be durable at that size in the NFL. But I think that he's very much capable. Ladd is very capable of having the type of success in the NFL that he is currently having. Devontae Smith is having. I'm not saying he's as fast.
Bring it to me, Stoddard. I like it.
What
I
I'm
like
saying
it. Coming out here
is
bold.
He's capable of making plays on the next level. And I'm not going to say he's not going to be your number 1 receiver in the NFL, but he's going to be able to line up in the slot and get open and make some plays for you. Now in the day and age of the NFL and the route concepts and how good these offensive coordinators are, they're going to draw some stuff up that like he's not going to be going up for jump balls. I mean, they're going to avoid that. He doesn't have to. Like you have other guys on you have your X and Y receiver that are going to go up, your tight ends. Those guys are going to do that. Your slot receiver is not going up for jump balls. So I think he's very capable of having a lot of success in the NFL. Where he ends up or how high he goes as far as a draft, I don't know. And Dan, I see that. No, there's no way Ladd McConkey's 6 foot tall. No chance.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I think it really just depends on, or not really depends on. I just think when you add in his size, he's really good route running. That's why he's able to get so wide open at some points, like he did against Tennessee. Like and if you're a good route runner, if you're very fundamentally sound in that area of the game, which you have to be, if you're someone like Ladd McConkey, like we just talked about his size or the lack thereof, you have to be good in in all your other parts of the game of your style of play. And he is. Ladd McConkey is really good in every other part of the game, and he exceeds in some areas where other guys do not. And even like you said, you're not going to be throwing up jump balls to Ladd. He has shown he can go up there and climb the ladder a little bit and go up and high point the football for you and bring it down. He has shown some of the ability to do that. I just think with someone that is so flexible in the offense, Georgia runs end arounds with him. He had that really long touchdown to open up the second half against Mississippi State this past year off of it. When you're dangerous in the open field, when you make plays, especially at the SEC level where guys are fast, like at a different type of level, like defensively, linebackers and whatnot, those guys are fast. And when you're able to run away from those guys and you're able to show that you can create distance in the open field and you can make those guys miss, then you show the ability that you can do that at the next level as well. So I think Ladd has great college tape already. He's going to put together a whole nother season of it. In fact, there towards the end of this past season, he was playing hurt. It was very evident that Ladd McConkey was very far from 100%, but he still went out there, gave out a gutsy performance in the playoffs and whatnot. So he's going to put together another season of tape, hopefully one that's 100% healthy throughout the entire year, and another great season. Yeah, Ladd McConkey is definitely going to be a guy that's in the NFL, and I would say for quite a while.
Yeah, he's got the ability to, as long as he can hold up, like I said, the same question that I have for Devontae Smith is his ability to hold up being hit by some of these massive, massive human beings. And I guess both of them do get the benefit of playing in the SEC where you have 350-pound dudes, everywhere that are hitting them. So they are used to bigger bodies for sure, coming from the two schools these guys have played at. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays. And Dan, ESPN may say Devontae and Ladd are 6 feet, but I mean, I've been close enough to Ladd to tell you he's not 6 feet tall.
We'll give it to him anyways, I guess.
But if they're going to put it on ESPN, they can have it. Like they can have it.
And also,
that's
Dan,
fine.
This shouldn't come as a surprise to you. I don't know who Largent is, Steve Largent. I'm sorry, bro. I don't know who that is, so I can't really speak on that comp. If you say it's 100% accurate, then I'm going to take your word for it because I'm sure you got it all figured out. Sorry, I know the young age is showing, but that's what you're here for. You're here to show us the historical knowledge that we are not very well aware of. So there you go. We appreciate that. But yeah, sorry.
Absolutely.
Can't help you there with that one.
All right, so the second part of this question is about Brock. It just says Brock and their NFL, or it says Brock and will he be the number one draft, number one draft pick of his year next year. And so I would assume obviously it's Brock Bowers. That's at least what we're going to go off for this conversation. I don't think anyone would be talking about Brock Vandagriff right now because as of right now, he's not listed as a starter. And so we wouldn't expect to see that just yet. But let's focus on Brock Bowers, right? His ability to, can he be the number 1 overall draft pick? And I mean, short answer is, I mean, he can be, but let's do the, will he be, or what would your projection for him be? And like, assuming that he's going to have the same type of year this next season that he's had his first 2 seasons, where he has, 900 yards receiving, 1,000 yards receiving, something like that, and puts on the same type of show to go into it. So you'll have 3 consecutive seasons of that type of production.
Well, to answer the first one, will he be the number 1 overall pick? Or I know that's not what the guy originally asked, our commenter, what he originally asked, but will he be the number 1 pick? I don't think so. I mean, Kyle Pitts was the highest drafted tight end a couple years ago by the Falcons, and that was with picks 6 or 4. So the 4th pick, I think he definitely has the potential. It's so hard to say that right now because it's all dependent upon team needs, who's ever in that top 5 or top 10 or whatnot. Kind of like this year, the Bears probably don't need a quarterback this year. They would need defensive players more than likely because they have Justin Fields, but there's also talks about them trading that pick. So it all just depends on the scenario of like what's going on, what other team needs, like how does the draft class look as of like quarterback position? Is it real top heavy? Is it just absolutely loaded? So many factors play into it. I think Brock Bowers, without a doubt, has potential to be a top 10 pick easily. People have been saying that for the past 2 years. People said after his freshman year that Brock Bowers would go in the top 10 after his freshman season, even if he didn't play 2 more years in college. They said right now, today, Brock Bowers would be a top 10 pick as a true freshman in college. So there's tons of hype around the guy. There has been. He's going to run a ridiculous 40-yard time in the NFL Combine, like 4.4, maybe even sub 4.4, like in that range. Ridiculous. Ooh. Just absolute burner. I'm serious.
I know.
And so it's a freak show. He's an absolute freak show. He almost came so close in the national championship to becoming Georgia's second 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah, he needed 60 more. I think he ended up with like
60-something yards. Just couldn't get it done. So he's gonna do really well. Like we said, it'll be interesting to see how the tight ends are used this upcoming year because we don't know how much 12 personnel they're going to run now that Darnell Washington is off to the NFL. But I mean, his production isn't going to change. People said that going into year 2 that his production would probably take a drop off because people are like, oh, well, it's Brock Bowers. Everybody get on Brock Bowers because that's all Georgia has. People were saying that his freshman year. They're at the end of his freshman year. And yeah, good luck, basically. It ain't going to happen. People were saying that about Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. Like, oh, it's Travis Kelce. Just cover Travis Kelce. Well, how'd that turn out for Philadelphia?
He was
not too
gashing
well.
him early in that game too. Yeah.
When you're as good as Brock Bowers is, it's not as simple as just saying, oh, well, we're going to high-low him. We're going to put 2 guys on him. We're going to take him out of the game and make someone else beat us. He's too good. Georgia's going to find a way to get him the ball, whether it's in the screen game, the in-around game, whatever it is. He's going to get the ball in his hands. He's going to make plays because that's what he does. So, yeah, in short, yes, he is going to be a top 10 pick, I believe.
I mean, I would guarantee, like, if he has a season that he had the past 2 years, right? That once again, that I'm assuming, the sake of this argument, I'm assuming he has the same type of production with plus or minus like 50 to 100 yards, right? Like, so between like 8 and 1,000 essentially in this next season. Then I would say that there's no chance he's not a top 10 pick. I would say that would be a guaranteed lock. I would go the next step to say that at that point, I would be pretty confident that he could be another, top 5 pick like, you got with Kyle Pitts, because at that point it's a generational type talent at the same way that Kyle Pitts was looked at, where it's like, hey, you can't miss on, you get the opportunity to get a guy like this up early. You got to do it. That's a type of player that you would see somebody maybe shift some things around in that top 5 area to go for. As far as the number 1 pick, I think Dan hit it perfectly in the comments. Is I don't think teams value a tight end at number 1. I think there are too many teams out there that are still trying to find their quarterback. Some defensive positions, every once in a while that jump that high. You see defensive end, Trayvon Walker last year, maybe an offensive lineman. Sometimes you get big positions like that go number 1, and it's not usually, or it's never been a tight end. The highest tight end drafted was number 4. I think that he would, if he does the same thing he did last year, he's very capable of being the second tight end drafted in the top 5 of the draft. I don't think that's a big stretch. I don't think that's a super hot take. I think it's just one thing that we've talked about a lot on the other podcast with Dan, the 4 Wide podcast, is listen, if you have a good tight end, especially in the NFL, like a good pass catching, route running tight end in the NFL, your offense can run through that individual and will be very successful. There's a reason that Kansas City, like you said a minute ago, Kansas City has had Travis Kelce out here just tearing people up, and everyone knows, hey, don't let Travis Kelce beat you. What does he do? He still beats you. I mean, if you have a guy on that caliber or that level, you can't miss on him. And I think that's the opportunity that a team will have for a potential top 5 pick if he's just as productive this next year. Guaranteed top 10. I would say guaranteed top 10.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think Brad and Brock are going to do really well this next season. I think they're going to be focal points of the offense. They're they were the 2 main guys for you this last year in the receiving game. Both of them were 1 and 2 in receiving yards, and you get them back. And then you also added some other weapons like Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas. And you still have some other really talented guys on that roster. And so when you add more weapons, I was like, all that's going to do is just open things up for Brock and Ladd more. And especially talking about Brock, what makes guys like him, and you mentioned Travis Kelce and you mentioned like a Kyle Pitts, and what makes them so valuable is that there is no way to defend them. That's the thing. Right. You can't just high-low him because he's too dominant and like he just catches everything that you throw to him. You can't put a linebacker on him because he's too fast. You guys can't stick with him. And you can't put a safety on him because he's too small. Brock Bowers is too big. And that's what makes him so valuable, is because there is no solution defensively to stopping Brock Bowers. All you can pray and hope for is that you can just stick with him long enough or provide enough coverage and hope the defensive line gets to the quarterback first or something, or that he just drops the ball, or that he catches it and you just got to bring him down to the ground as soon as he catches it. That's really all you can hope for with Brock Bowers. And man, he has really changed Georgia's offense during his time here, because, there was a long time where the running joke was Georgia doesn't know what a tight end is. They don't know how to use it. Does Georgia even know that the tight end exists? And then Brock Bowers came in and changed everything. That changed the entire narrative around it. And now with all the names that they're getting at tight end and what Todd Hartley has done at that position, they're starting to brew a conversation of, is Georgia going to be the next tight end U? Is that what they're becoming right now? Because they keep adding in all these names on the roster, and it doesn't look like that dominance is going to stop anytime soon. So that's kind of what he has done for the University of Georgia. And the fact that Georgia still gets another year of him after what feels like he's been here long enough to be a professional, then man, it's almost a cheat code. It's almost unfair. I'm sure college football teams, and especially teams in the SEC, are real sick and tired of having a game plan for Brock Bowers.
Yeah, when you talk about like Georgia's history with tight end, I mean, like you think like Orson Charles got a good bit of attention, back at that time, but then after Orson Charles came through, it was a bunch of guys that were good tight ends, like your Arthur Lynch's and guys like that, John Fitzpatrick, and some decent guys out there. But there was a reason that Georgia had to go. Georgia went and got people out of the transfer portal, and Trey McKitty and Eli Wolf at times to kind of fill voids at that tight end position, because it was kind of neglected for a really long time. Isaac Nada was supposed to be this like insane talent, a 5-star guy. What Brock Bowers is right now is what a lot of fans hoped they would. Actually, I would even honestly say that people would have hoped that Isaac Nada would have been like a 600, 650 kind of receiving yard guy, and they would have been perfectly fine with it, because you didn't see that at Georgia prior to it, but that's what you would expect. Now you see what Brock Bowers has been able to do, and now everyone has high expectations for these tight ends that are built the same type of stature and same type of like playmaking ability to see what they can do. But yeah, at Georgia there was a long period of time where you didn't have it. So at this point, guys, sit back and enjoy it, because you get Brock Bowers for one more year. Don't like neglect to look at it and say, man, this is a special time to watch this guy just go at it like he is. Yeah, there's some other guys on that roster that we'll get to see, like Oscar Delp and Pierce Spurlin are on the roster now that we are expecting big things out of, but that doesn't mean they can necessarily be a 1,000-yard receiver type quality that you currently have with Brock. That's insane, man. That's a tight end.
Look, at this point, if you can get a guy that can be 80-85% of what Brock Bowers is, you're going to be fine. And you saying just enjoy it, yes, absolutely enjoy it, because there's a very high probability that Georgia will never have another Brock Bowers on their roster ever.
He's a generational type player right now. Like
absolutely.
He is.
Absolutely. But I enjoyed that conversation. I thought that was a really good opener for the show. Like we said, guys, if you put something in the comments, you want to post question to us, stuff that you would like to hear us discuss, do it. We read the comments every single week, and if we see a question that we like, we're going to discuss it. We're going to bring it to the show. And as you see here, we discussed it, and we gave it like 20 minutes on the show. We talked about it in as much depth as we could. Hopefully we answered that question as well as you guys had hoped we would. And now we get to move on to another topic, another positional breakdown like we've been doing this entire offseason. And this time we're going to do the cornerbacks. I think this is one that our audience specifically has been really waiting on because everybody's interested to see what kind of names are floating around that cornerback 2 spot now that Kelee Ringo is gone. Obviously, Kamari Lassiter is going to shift over to that number 1 spot. You still got Javon Ballard. I think we're going to go ahead and include the star position with our cornerbacks because it's kind of like at the nickel back, whatever you want to call it. We're going to go ahead and include our guy. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and put in Javon Ballard. We'll do safeties another time. But yeah, everybody wants to know who's going to be that guy that's on and up beside Kamari Lassiter. And there's quite a few names that you can throw in there. Like, I think the one that most people – I think there's two that a lot of people are really interested in and kind of feel like it's between these two that are going to be battling it out for the spot is Nyland Green, who's been here for 2 years now. One that probably a lot of people expected him to see a lot more playing time than he has already. And then the other one is Dalen Everett. And I don't think you can really go wrong with either of those two guys. Extremely talented. Georgia's loaded down in the secondary now. I put out a tweet like a month ago, I want to say about, can we just talk about how seamless transitions have been in Georgia's secondary and specifically at cornerback? Like, think back, you had Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes, and then you had Kelee Ringo and Darian Kendrick. And now you had Kelee Ringo and Kamari Lassiter. And now you're about to have Kamari Lassiter and someone else. That's a lot of talent that you've been able to produce. And it's just smooth and seamless. There's never bumps in the road. And a lot of that has to do with the development that those coaches have done, like Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, 2 guys that know the position very well. They can coach it really well. And then also you have a guy like Fran Brown now, who's really talented, a really great coach as well. So you got basically the best defensive backs coaches in the entire country helping develop this room. And you have a room that's just loaded down with a bunch of talent. But now it's just a matter of like who's the top dog coming out of spring? Who's the top dog coming out of fall camp? I think you'll get a really good idea by the time G-Day rolls around of who's going to be that top dude beside Kamari Lassiter. And then but there's also some other names that I think could start contesting for some playing time and could start getting in the mix as their career progresses as well.
Yeah, you obviously hit on the big one. Like, Kamari Lassiter he was the number 2 guy last year, so he's going to be the guy in one of those 2 spots. So you can go ahead and lock him in. It is going to be really, really interesting. I think spring ball, this is a position to watch. We talk about that a lot going into spring is like position groups to watch during spring camp to see what's going to shake out. This is one of them because, like you said, you've got Everett and Green right now. Both of those guys are really, really fighting. Nyland Green's going in. This is his 3rd season that coming up. He's a redshirt sophomore. So at this point, you and I were talking prior to the show, and I feel like it's do or die moment for him. This is go get some time on the field right now. This is the time to do it. Or I don't know that you're going to be able to do it at Georgia, and that's not a shot at him because the guy's great. That just says something about what's on Georgia's roster and how hard it is to climb up those ranks, even though you're a highly ranked, high school guy, and maybe you're putting in a lot of work and you're still looking good overall. There's just always somebody out there that's like so competitive, so talented on this roster that it's hard to crack that starting lineup. Last year going into it, I think, I think when he was a freshman, going in his freshman year, I think I talked about him being a potential freshman that could get on the field, because I had that high of expectations for him. And I really do think that he could still be a factor at Georgia. This is the time for him to make a move, though. Like, if he wants to be in that rotation, he at minimum has to make himself that 3rd guy in total so he can get on the field and play and have like real time on the field. And that's all going to come down to what he does in spring ball, I think, this year. I hate to put a guy on the bubble kind of thing, like that, but I think he's probably on a bubble. Like he's got it's do or die for him. Dan, I think you're right as well. AJ Harris, there's been a lot of buzz about him already just because he was early on and he was out there during bowl practice, was he not? Correct me if I'm wrong. He was out there, and we were hearing his name as somebody that's already looking good during bowl practice at Georgia. So spring ball for him, he could be now he's the one that's the freshman that could come on the scene and actually do something this year. Not saying he's not going to start. He's not going to start. Don't take that twisted. But he could get on the field in meaningful snaps.
Yeah, he was one of the names I was kind of hinting at when I said as these guys' career progresses, it's going to be a name that you start hearing in the mix more and more, especially as the season progresses. I think in the second half of the season, A.J. Harris might be a guy you see on the field a whole lot more than you did at the beginning of the season because he's a dude. He's going to be really good. He's going to be a really good football player for Georgia. He was already flashing during bowl practice and whatnot as an early enrollee, and that's usually a good sign of how good and talented a guy is. And that's a good problem for Georgia to have. The fact that you have all these names listed, you're kind of like, we can't just sit here and circle one guy like this is going to be your unit. These are going to be your two guys. That's a good problem to have if we're having to sit here and say like it could be Dalen Everett, it could be Nyland Green, maybe AJ Harris starts sneaking up on him later. Go down the entire list. There's tons and tons and tons. Like Georgia signed a whole dump truck load of cornerbacks in 2022. Not this most recent class, but the one before that. I mean, a bunch of dudes at the cornerback spot and a lot of really good ones. So it's a good problem to have. And I think the good thing is, and I think this is part of the reason why Georgia has been so good at the cornerback spot for the past couple of years is you're able to put in a guy that's already a number one who got experience last year. They weren't necessarily your top guy, but they got a lot of experience the season before, and then they get to transition into the number one spot or like the number one spot because Georgia kind of does cornerbacks a little differently. It's not like you got this guy the whole game,
1A, 1B kind of thing.
Yeah. You're both responsible for the same things essentially, but nonetheless, you're listed as like the number one guy on the depth chart and whatnot. And so Kamari Lasker is going to be that for Georgia. And he was really good this past season. He served as a great number two next to Keely Ringo. Kirby Smart has said that he's the best tackler on the team. That's a great thing to have as a cornerback. I think he showed a lot of progress as the season went on.
Those open field tackles one-on-one with the center, important.
Absolutely. And so I think he showed a lot of great progress. We saw what Javon Ballard was this past season. Good Lord. I feel like our listeners probably think I'm just the biggest Javon Ballard fanboy, and I kind of am because I really do just love watching 22 play because I just say he's the guy you put out there and it's like, go make some plays. And that's what he did in the national championship game. He's just all over the field. He's in the backfield. He's making plays, strip fumbles. He does everything and anything that you ask him to, and he's really freaking good at it. So I think he's like an X factor for Georgia in that secondary. He's a dangerous player and a guy that just wreaks havoc all over the field. So I think the quarterback spot's in a great position as of right now. Going into spring practice, the fact that you get to have all these guys go in there and battle it out, contest for playing time, and you just get to see who's going to rise to the occasion, who's in the biggest spotlight. And when it's your time, your number is being called, like any mess up could change the future outlook of your career at the University of Georgia. Like you have to show up every single day at practice and you have to be locked in and ready. Those are the types of battles that you want to see on your depth chart and at practice, especially in the spring. Guys that have to duke it out. You have to show up every single day. You have to earn that spot. It is not given to you. It occurs at every single spot at Georgia because they play the best players on the field. That's what they do. They put them out there, and you have to earn your right to get playing time. And so when those battles happen and those guys have to earn those minutes, it really just emphasizes like, man, that guy is on the field for a reason. He earned that spot. He has every right to be on that field, and that means he's going to be really good when his time does come this fall. So a lot of great options, a lot of great football players, and Georgia's secondary is going to continue to flourish.
Yeah, and you talk about like Javon Ballard, but a guy that's kind of did kind of lose his spot to Javon Ballard is Tyke Smith. I'm interested to see if, Dan just put a pretty important thing in the comments right now, just said, just stay healthy. Like that's your best ability is your availability. And so I think one thing that really hurt Tyke Smith when he came to Georgia was he got hurt right away. And, so then being hurt, then he saw people start taking his spot. And once that happens at Georgia, it's really, really hard to get it back, man, because once again, all of these guys on this roster are begging and pleading for their opportunity to get on the field. And if it takes an injury, it just kind of sucks for you. Like if you're the one that got hurt, it honestly does, because every single one of these guys on Georgia's roster is capable of playing, capable of taking starting reps from somebody else. And if they go out there and they have a couple of good games while you're sitting on the bench because you're hurt, it's really, really hard to come back from it, man, because Kirby likes to see that kind of stuff. And he definitely gives some leeway to the younger guy when they start proving it, even if it is because of an injury. So I think that's definitely what happened to Tyke. And that doesn't mean he's done, at Georgia and his ability to put something on the field. He can still put something on the field at Georgia. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out with him in this spring. I think it's a do or die moment for him if he's healthy at this point. see what he can put on in spring practice and see if he can get on the field come the fall. Another name that I want to bring up because I don't really know. I mean, he could play star. He might be safety. But we got to talk about Smoke Bowie. I mean, he's transferred in. He's a sophomore. He's going to come in this place and ready to go. I mean, he's going to try to get on the field. And the reason I bring him up right now is because he shifts into that star position, which we're kind of grouping into the corners right now. That's a name to look for.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's become very evident that when Georgia goes and dips their hand into the transfer portal and they go and get a guy, they do it for a reason, and they're doing it because they think that this guy is going to play. You don't get guys that you don't just take guys to take guys. Not with how you have to manage your roster now, manage numbers, and you have to dwindle down numbers to the limit and scholarship numbers and whatnot. You have to be very diligent with who you take in the transfer portal. So you can't just
Georgia looks for those day one contributors when they go into the transfer portal.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that he's going to be the guy that just comes in and starts like you did with Darian Kendrick when you got him from Clemson. I don't think he's going to be that. I think he still has some time that he's going to have to come in here, develop a little bit, learn some stuff. But I think it's good to have him as an option to throw out there on the field if something does happen, if an injury comes down to it. He is a guy that got a little bit of experience in the SEC at Texas A&M for 1 year as a freshman. Not a whole lot, but he did get a little bit. And so I think he's a great guy to have for depth this year. Whereas, like you said, if injuries do happen, he's someone that is definitely an option that you could throw in there, and you would probably feel really comfortable with him being out there. And you don't have to end up making excuses like some other fans across college football do when injuries happen of like, oh, woe is me. That was the end of our season. If that hadn't happened, then we would have been national champions. That doesn't happen at Georgia. Guys step up, they make plays, and they do their job because injuries are part of football. It's a very physical sport. They're going to happen. You can't avoid them. And so all you can do is prepare for them and do the best that you can to have your roster ready and make sure that the next guy up is ready to go and that he is able to rise to the occasion. And Georgia has done that time and time again. So, yeah, a lot of good names that you mentioned. That was a good one. Mentioning Smoke Bowie, that was not one I thought about, but that is a good name to mention. I almost forgot about him.
Well, I mean, because he's a transfer, and you haven't really heard his name too much, but he is transferring in. So our first chance to really get to see what he does at Georgia is this spring practice coming up. So it's not too far out that we get to start seeing a little bit of his development at Georgia and what he's going to be able to do. Dan, I mean, as far as I'm like what I would view it, I would say, yeah, Georgia, uses the star as the nickel corner, kind of like a slot corner, exactly like that. They bring them inside, they cover the wide receivers out of the slot, and then they match up with, your maybe a running back out of the back sometimes, and then your tight ends a good bit, over the middle like that. If they're that. Basically a hybrid safety corner. That's what you use it for at Georgia. You're a little bigger than your normal corner, but maybe not quite a safety or just a hard hitter, which is what Javon Bullard is. Javon is
everything.
Absolutely. He reminds me of Adams.
Jamal
safety,
Adams.
What's his? Jamal Adams. Thank you. He kind of because that dude, that's the kind of like safety he was. He was more of like a star. He would come down kind of like a sub linebacker. But that was kind of before that position was really dubbed what it is now, like the star, like it's used in today's game. But he kind of played that same thing. He helped a lot in the run. He came downhill, and just absolutely blow people up, and that's what Javon Bullard does. There's my comparison. That's what he does. Just absolutely takes.
I mean, yeah, he's
off,
definitely like
literally.
you see, like in years past, you've seen stuff like where Jamal Adams just kind of takes over a game. He just absolutely takes it over defensively. He did it against the Falcons a few years ago where it seemed like every single play he was sacking Matt Ryan. Like every single play he was in the backfield doing something. He was doing something to disrupt the game. And I think another comparison of someone that reminds me of that, of guys that just felt like that they took over games defensively was Tyrann Mathieu. Now, Tyrann Mathieu did freaking everything for the LSU Tigers. Georgia fans got that experience firsthand in the SEC championship game. Yeah.
Corner.
Now, Javon Bullard does not do that, special teams and stuff, but it just feels like sometimes Javon Bullard just takes over the game defensively. Like if the ball, wherever the ball is on the field, 22 is going to be involved. He's going to have his head. He's going to have a head on another head, and he's going to be involved making the tackle, doing something to impact the play.
He did it in the biggest games of the season for Georgia too. That's the thing, like where he came out is like the stars, the lights didn't get too bright for him. You know what I mean? Like they didn't bother him in those big games. Like the first game this past year that he really, really came out onto the scene was against Tennessee. It's a game that you're looking for them to pass heavy. What do? They use Javon Bullard in a lot of different facets, and he's in the backfield sacking the quarterback, getting to Hendon Hooker, multiple times in that game. I think he hit him like 3 or 4 times, and I think he got credited with 2 sacks.
He was a
I mean,
menace
that was the
day.
first one. He was a menace to society for sure. Like, I mean, and then you get him in the playoffs, SEC championship game, playoff games. Like, he shows up in all 3 of those games as well. Like, he did. He defensively he's the type of guy that like really comes up when it matters most, and that's an attribute that can't be overlooked. Like, it's so important. Big games, big moments, lights can't be too bright for you, and they're definitely not for Javon Bullard. Not at all.
No, not at all. They've proven not to be too bright for the secondary in general. Those guys are always well prepared, and they do their job really well. They help out that defense a lot more than they get credit for, but that's also just due to how good Georgia's front seven is, and you can't not look at those names and not mention those names. But the secondary definitely deserves a lot of credit as well for how good Georgia has been defensively over the past couple of years. But I think we did a great job, again, breaking down that position. We've checked off quite a few positions already. We're gonna keep on moving along. We still got a lot of other great position battles to discuss this upcoming spring and whatnot. So we're gonna keep bringing them to you. Maybe we'll bring back the Twitter poll next week, let you guys have a voice in that, and we'll let you guys have a say in it. But as far as we're concerned, we're gonna keep bringing it to you. We're gonna break down every position, do what we do every single week, give you names to watch for, how we think the position is gonna look, who might be your stars, et cetera, et cetera. But now we get into the extra fun part of the episode, and we're coming back again with King of the Hill. I know we said that we were going to rotate Talking Season and King of the Hill, but King of the Hill is kind of taken over, it seems like. But we will be bringing back Talking Season.
Well,
we just got to find
Season,
the content.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The content of Talking Season, like we were talking about it today, and I was looking, man, I haven't seen, a lot of stuff that was worth talking about on here. So if you guys are seeing something and for the viewers that may not watch us all the time that are on here right now, first of all, make sure y'all like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you like this video if you're watching right now. But Talking Season is where we go on, we find stuff from Twitter that is comments made by opposing team fans. For instance, the common ones that we get all the time is Tennessee and it is Florida. Bama's been in the chat a good bit lately, just because I think they're kind of getting
they got a lot
threatened.
going on over there right now.
They're getting threatened, and they got a lot going. Yeah, they got a lot going on. But basically, if you see them say something that's a little out of pocket, a little crazy sounding, or something that doesn't make sense, screenshot or send it to us on Twitter. Once again, the Twitter @s are on the bottom of the screen here. We love that content, and that's what fuels that segment of the show. So haven't had that come from you guys too much lately, and I haven't personally seen a ton on Twitter lately. Maybe I haven't been on there enough, but that's it. But anyways, go ahead.
I will give a shout out to Talking Season real quick. If you have not seen it, Jordan Yates, former Georgia Tech quarterback, released a TikTok video of him talking about what it was like facing Georgia's 2021 defense. If you haven't already, you can go on Twitter. You can find it in articles. You can do anything to find it. Just literally look up Jordan Yates, and I'm sure it'll be the first thing that comes up. And he talks about what it was like facing that defense. It's funny from a Georgia perspective. He gives a really raw, honest breakdown of what it was like. He basically says the field was smaller. We couldn't do anything. Jalen Carter was on the other sideline telling us that we were unprepared. And I was like, yeah, you're right. We don't know what's going on right now, dude. Like, we have no freaking clue what we're supposed to do to beat you guys. It's a really funny video. So I would give a shout out to that for Talking Season this week. But that is not what we're doing. We're doing King of the Hill. And I think I have a pretty interesting topic. I don't know if we're going to disagree or not, but you kind of gave the suggestion of this one, and I told you maybe we're not on the same side. I don't know, because I think I'm kind of on the fence a little bit. But there's been talk about rule changes in multiple sports. College football is going to, and especially about the time that sports take to complete. College football right now, they're trying to dwindle down the amount of play that those games last. And what they're going to do is they're going to let the clock keep running after first downs and whatnot. Don't eliminate the TV timeouts to take 40 years after every single play. Don't do that. Don't take away money out of your pocket, but instead just let the clock keep running after first downs. But I digress. But that's not the one you mentioned. You wanted to talk about specifically the pitch clock in the MLB. Now, there's been a lot of rule changes in the MLB specifically over the years. DH, universal DH for everybody, the extra runner on second base and extra innings, all that good stuff. And now the pitch clock got introduced a little while back, but now they're shortening it up even more. And this was an effort to shorten the game. And now they're going to shorten it up even more now. So what is your take, Stoddard? Do you think baseball takes too long to play? Do you think this is the way to solve that problem if you think it does take too long?
First of all, baseball does not take too long. It is just the way that you can't change how the speed of baseball, without drastically changing the game itself. And I think that that's the problem. In order to try to shorten the game is what the game is. You go up, you get 9 innings. You got to get 3 guys out on both sides every inning. There's the solution's not to sit here and speed up the pitch count. How much is that really going to increase the speed of the game itself? I think one thing I was looking at today was I think 15 seconds now? They've got it down to 15 seconds. Most pitchers aren't trying to take their sweet time, but 15 seconds, what you're going to start doing is you're going to make these pitchers really rush their delivery and rush their setup and everything like that. And you're going to start having a lot more injuries in baseball. That by speeding up the pitch clock and making them throw a pitch faster, that's not going to give us a better product by any means. And it's going to put players' safety in danger. It's really not going to speed the game up that much more because the games, baseball just takes as long as baseball takes. I've gone to baseball games where they're just over 2 hours. I've gone to baseball games where they take almost 4 hours. And if you go to extras, it might take longer. But going in there and trying to speed up the game by seconds, what good is it going to do? All it's going to do is impact the product that you actually get, but not speed the game up enough to actually be noticeable. What's the point of doing that? I don't understand.
I think it really makes me think of the whole theory about, I don't know if you've ever read about this, but I guess these 2 guys did this test to see guys that weave and speed through traffic, the guys that switch lanes constantly, they're driving 15 miles per hour over the speed limit the entire way. And then the guy that just cruises along the speed limit, just stays in his lane, doesn't do anything crazy, and see how long it takes to get to their destination. Same destination, same distance. The guy that speeds gets there faster by maybe 3 or 5 minutes. And it's does that really make that much of a difference? And now I know that that's one that's you put your life way more at risk than you do just watching a baseball game. But I agree with you. Is it really going to make that much of a difference for you making these changes? And, Max Fried today in practice, there was a video of him pitching and throwing against Ronald Acuna and whatnot. And Acuna hit a bomb off of him, and you could hear Max Fried kind of talking about man, the pitch clock got me. It went a lot faster than I thought it would, and I was not really prepared to deliver my pitch, and he had to rush a little bit, and that might throw off your location or whatever you're trying to do, your mechanics a little bit, and it might result in Ronald Acuna hitting a freaking moonshot off of you. So it'll take some getting used to, but I agree. I just think that the sports in general are trying too much to change things that just do not matter, I think, especially to their true fans, the people that show up every single day and watch baseball games. They don't care about how long a game takes. And like you said, some games might last 2.5 hours. If both pitchers are on and they're just striking everybody out, nobody's getting on base, that game might last 2 hours, and it might be done before you can even know it. But if people are getting on base and there's situations and time takes a little bit longer, then you might get into a 3.5 hour game, 4 hour game or whatnot. I did like this comment from Todd Langley talking about the size of the bases. I also thought this one was ridiculous as well. They showed a side-by-side of the bases that they're going to be implementing. These suckers are huge. I mean, massive. Now, you see these in softball where it's the double-sided bases and it's supposed to eliminate injuries a little bit and all this other hooey. But I think it definitely, again, why? This has never been an issue for the game ever. Is it really going to do that much for you?
They're looking at player safety, but I don't know that it really impacts too much on that. As far as the base size, I don't think how many injuries do we see as a collision at a base and stuff like that? They're few and far between, honestly, because it all comes down to how a player slides. Make the base bigger all you want. It doesn't change how the guy's going to slide into the bag. What difference is it going to make? And they're hoping that the player still slides dead center, and maybe that the defender, the infielder, especially middle infielders second and short, have a further away that they can kind of kick the bag and not necessarily be in the slide path. Is their assumption, but they're still going to get hit. It's not going to take it out of the game. I don't think it's really going to change too much of it by having it's not that big of a deal, honestly, having them a little bit bigger either. But I don't know. This one, Dean in the comments, this is kind of what I was getting at as well.
Style.
Yeah, I kind of like this too. Because obviously they're not going to shorten the commercial breaks as a whole because that's their money. They can't take the money away. What they can do is show ads on the screen, split screen, while they are still doing warm-ups and speed up the warm-up process in the middle part. You don't need as much time in between innings. What you do need is enough time in between pitches because that's where you're going to hurt somebody. But in between innings, maybe they throw a couple less warm-up pitches in between. They've been throwing, for 3 innings at this point. Their arm is going to be okay if they take 3 less like warm-up pitches or something like that. They speed that part up. Don't speed up mid-game. That was a good take.
Look, ESPN had the audacity to put freaking Aaron Judge on a split screen in the middle of college football games when he was going for his home run record or whatever. They have the audacity to do that. I think they can manage to do some split screen time for some commercials. The PGA Tour does it. They put side-by-side screens with a little split screen with some ads playing in the bottom right corner while the guys are walking up to their shots or whatnot. And then they do it with NASCAR as well because, like, you can't just stop a race or anything. There's not, like, guaranteed stop times in a NASCAR race. And so I digress. But I think there's a lot of change going on in sports, and a lot of it is unnecessary. But I agree with you for the most part. I will say sometimes, sitting at home, baseball games can get a little too long for my liking. Sometimes I am like, man, this game is just dragging on. Let's get going. As Dan said in the comments, just swing the freaking bat. Like, come on, boys. Don't be scared. Let's just go. But very minuscule changes that really add much. And if anything, it might just end up hurting the players of the sport more than it will do any good. So,
yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Look, here's the thing. If you want, when you're at home watching a game, there's 162 games in a season. Nobody's watching, nobody really watches every single game from start to finish. I might try to watch as many as possible, and I might have to turn one off in the middle because I got to go do something or something like that. A lot of times, I know Dan and I were talking about this the other day, and our chat was, baseball is great. Like, as a background, you're doing something around the house or something like that, and you get to have baseball and you can hear it, everything that's going on. And then when something's going on, you watch, you can see it like that. But baseball is not like, it's, every time I've gone to a baseball game, I'll sit there for 6 hours. I don't care. At home, yeah, it's a little different, but like that speeding it up, the pitch count and stuff like that's not going to really change it enough to justify making like an impact on the actual game play itself. As far as like, I stand by it. I think you're going to see pitchers hurt themselves. And I think you're going to see a lot of pitchers do what you're talking about with Max Fried and make mistakes. And guess what? Speed or makes the game take longer. More hitting, more base hits, more
fun.
home runs.
More fun makes a game longer.
The game takes longer when, like you said earlier, you're exactly how you described the game of when it goes to 2 hours. It's because the pitchers are on. It's because the pitchers are striking people out, and they're not getting a bunch of base runners, and they're not making the inning 25 minutes. Like, that's the big difference. It is not the fact that like you need to make pitchers move faster. It's honestly, you need less hits in the game. That's going to make the game go faster. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a dumb push that they're making. And Dan, you made a comment about the generation thing. First of all, what generation is the one that's actually making these changes? It's not my generation. My generation is not in the executive office.
Old people trying to ruin our game.
Don't put this on our generation. It's not us. It's the older
Don't
generation.
You put that on me.
Y'all have the ability to make the changes. Y'all are doing it, not us. We're not in the executive offices.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you do it.
It's your fault, Boomer Dan. Come on now.
Okay, things are getting a little heated now. We're going to go ahead and get on out of here before Jeremiah continues on his little rant. Goodness. I think another great King of the Hill topic. Like we said, guys, we know this may not be Georgia football related or may not be the content that you're coming to listen to. It's just supposed to spark some conversation in the comments, have some off-season fun, get to talk about some things that we don't generally get to talk about in the middle of football season, because in the middle of football season, it's strictly business and it's strictly football content, and we're bringing everything else to you. So just trying to bring some fun content for you in the offseason. That's all we're trying to do, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you're still here, we appreciate it. If you're watching this later on and you're not watching it live and you made it this far, we appreciate you greatly. Hopefully you like and subscribe to the video already. Comment down below any suggestions that you have, what you liked about the video, or any comments what you have about baseball's time length. What do you think about it? Is it too long? Is it too short? Is this necessary? Or any other rule changes that you think are ridiculous? Let us know in the comments. Do that. Engage with us. We'll typically comment back as well and continue to carry on the conversation. But we appreciate all of you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We will see you guys next week on Wednesday, same time, live show on YouTube. You know the deal by now. And Jeremiah, you can close us out.
As always, keep it classy in the Classic City, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Classic City Sports. Take a second to subscribe, rate, review, and share with your friends and family. Feel free to reach out to the Classic City Sports Crew on Twitter with any topics you'd like discussed. You can reach out to Jeremiah at The Stodfather, to Jonathan at Dr._J.Will, and make sure to follow at Classic City Pod for show updates. Check back next week for a brand new episode. In the meantime,
2 simple words which express the sentiments of the entire Bulldog Nation.